All right, now in this final round, we'll be focusing on the final step of the EDR workflow, production. And in productions, often the two biggest considerations are going to be timelines and knowing when the data has to be produced out to the outside party or opposing party, and the format, knowing what the document submission standards are from the outside party and making sure that your technological capabilities are available to meet that. Some of the legal technology considerations we'll be thinking about is that do we have the ability to do multi-format exporting? Depending on what the document submission standards has, can I meet that with my technology? We'll look at redactions and are they able to be exported out as an image? And then we'll also look at defensibility. Do I have Bates numbering and slip sheets going on as a part of my defensible production? And then finally, since this is such a time-sensitive step within the EDR workflow, do I have an ease of use to be able to quickly download the data that's been exported out? Now let's look at how to run exports and productions out of the Microsoft Advanced eDiscovery solution. So we're back inside of our review set where we had last left off running our search, and we want to go ahead and export out these 9 documents here. So I'll go ahead and select all 9 documents. And then from the Actions drop-down menu, I have 2 options. I have Download and I have Export. So if you're thinking about how to export data out natively, and you may be producing natively to an outside counsel that you might have, or the request that specifically come in has you exporting data out in a native format, Microsoft tells you to use the download option. And I'll admit the download option is pretty nice. It will pull data down directly into a location that you point it to and give it to you in a final format. It's a quick solution and it was nice. Now, of course, it's a server error for me because there's something up with the data time offset stamp. And as I've been going through the demonstrations, I've been running into constant errors, which doesn't line up how Microsoft likes to do things with what the data that we've processed in actually looks like. And that can always be a problem when your raw data doesn't match the way Microsoft wants to see things. The other option is to export, and we'll go ahead and use the export option. And it gives us a panel here on the right. It tells us to name our export, and then we can also choose whether we want to export out just these 9 documents or all the documents inside of my review set. Now it does tell me that I have an option for a load file, so we do have metadata fields that will be placed into a load file, and optionally I can add work product as tags into my load file as well. Now I can choose the content to be native files, and if I was not to check the native files, it would only be a metadata export out. It wouldn't actually be any data there. One thing I'm missing though is that, where's my production? When we've seen productions in a normal litigation industry standard production format, we're going to see either Bates numbering going on. We'll have watermarks at the bottom of on the documents. There might be an imaging tool, whether to convert it to TIFF files or PDF files. Not really options that are available here. The only options I do have is exporting out a corresponding text file, as well as exporting out those documents that have received redactions, not as natives, but instead as PDFs. So it does provide that option to you. But I don't have an imaging option. It looks like everything is going to remain in its native format, either as PSTs, MSGs, or PDFs, or whatever the files are inside my data set. And now it's asking us, where are we going to export this data out to? And this is where it gets really confusing. We have an option for a Microsoft-provided Azure Blob Storage container, or an Azure Blob Storage container that you have the URL and SAS token for. We're getting back into that command prompt work again. And again, at the export stage, productions may be performed by the legal team. There might be a paralegal member that is tasked with running productions, or there is legal team members that are tasked with running exports. Running into this ease of use issue becomes important again, is that how are we going to get this export out? Now I'll fast forward because I've already run the production, and it gives me a successful notification saying that the export has been successfully completed, but I don't really have more information as to how do I get to my export now. I get a location here. It looks like an address I'll be able to point to. That might be my blob storage container that I've moved that export to that'll pull it up. When you actually go open the step-by-step instructions on what Microsoft wants you to do to download the export jobs, it gets really difficult. It has you first installing the Azure Storage Explorer, then pulling that URL location that we just saw inside of the job, connecting to the storage location, and several other steps that makes me believe they haven't ironed out their process as it relates to exporting out data. Not only do we not have a more industry standard production coming out with Bates numbers and imaging, but we're also lacking on getting to that raw data to view our exports. Now let's look at how to run exports and productions from the Veritas eDiscovery platform. So you can see here we're still inside of our analysis and review module. And from the documents that have been found as search results, I'm going to go ahead to the Actions drop-down menu and choose Export. Now across the top for my export job, you can see there's 4 different tabs. I can do a metadata export, a production export, a native-only export, and then exporting of logs out of the system. Now the metadata export that we're going to look at first here is the equivalent of what you just saw with the Microsoft Advanced eDiscovery export, but with a lot more transparency. You can see here that first of all, we have templates that are going to be available throughout our exported jobs. Exports and productions are often going to be an iterative process, and we're going to want to stay as consistent as possible in our exports and productions. So to have templates saved, either as default templates that are available inside the system or your own customized templates, both will be available to you in each one of the export jobs that we discuss. Now below here, we'll see the different metadata fields that are available to us inside of our export. Now if you remember from the Microsoft Advanced eDiscovery export, it just gave the option for a metadata export. It didn't actually say which fields you could include as a part of the metadata export. We're able to leverage several different fields, but choose only the fields that we need to in the metadata export. Now these fields may be determined by the outside counsel or opposing party that's asking for particular fields, or you'll want to stick to more of a standard or extended CSV file for your metadata fields. Below that, we have a format for any type of coded documents that will be exported out. We're able to choose tags to include as a part of our metadata export if we're exchanging this data with code litigants, folders as well, and then a plethora of other options that we could include as part of our metadata export. And then finally at the bottom, something that we really want to differentiate between what you saw and the complexity of the Microsoft Advanced eDiscovery with the Veritas eDiscovery platform, our output as a part of this export job will either be a downloadable zip file that would be available here at the top in our jobs window, always linked, or it can be exported directly to a file share location that you want the export to go to. So that's a metadata export. Next, let's look at a production export. Now this was shockingly something that was missing in the Microsoft Advanced eDiscovery solution. When you think about eDiscovery, you're thinking about that final stage of the EDRM workflow, that final stage that all hard litigation or internal investigations go through is when you're having to export a production out. Productions means imaged data, it means redacted data, it means Bates numbering, it means footnotes and watermarks on documents, all of which was missing from Microsoft's solution. In the Veritas eDiscovery platform, a more mature eDiscovery solution, we have a plethora of options that you can leverage for your productions. You can see here that we have file naming by Bates numbers. We can include images either in TIFFs or as PDFs. You can create multi-page TIFFs or single-page TIFFs. We're able to include the extracted text, also include documents natively as a part of our larger production. And then once again, similar to what we saw in the metadata export, we have several different fields that we can leverage. This will often be decided at a meet and confer stage between litigants or may be part of a document submission standards from a regulatory commission. And then we'll see some consistency again from the metadata export to the production. We have the formatting, the tags, and the plethora of options here at the bottom on how you best want to set up your production. And then again, finally at the bottom, your output can either be in a downloadable zip file that'll be available in that jobs window at the top, or you can have it moved directly to a file share location of your choosing. Again, a tab and a feature that was shockingly missing in the Microsoft solution set up inside of the Veritas eDiscovery platform. And now the final tab is the natives only export. And this is what we saw when we were in the Microsoft Advanced eDiscovery solution by using that download option where you took those documents that were in front of us and we were able to download them directly. Same thing here with the native only export, we're able to download it here with the one caveat that we're able to decide, do we want all the copies, every single one that was collected in, or because of deduplication being leveraged at the processing level in the Veritas eDiscovery platform, do we just want one single copy to come out? Oftentimes when you're taking native data and sending it over to your outside counsel to review, you may not want to be sending duplicate copies as they'll be having to look at both those copies. You could just send a single copy and save a bit of time in the review. So when we're comparing, again, the exports and productions between Microsoft and Veritas' solution, we find Microsoft's solution severely lacking as it relates to what the industry knows now as an export and production job from the technology that's being leveraged. whereas in the Veritas eDiscovery platform, a matured, more advanced, next-level eDiscovery tool that gives you a plethora of options to run both your exports and productions.
EDP wins that round again. Holy export and production options, Batman. Did you see the missing productions tab? We had template exports, Bates numbering missing, and also the bring your own blob storage and drop to a command prompt again for exports.